Welcome to the AI for Interior Designers podcast, where creativity meets cutting edge technology. In each episode, we dive deep into the world of artificial intelligence and explore how it's revolutionizing the interior design industry. From AI-powered design tools to the latest trends and innovations, we've got you covered. So plug in, relax, and let's embark on this exciting journey together. Welcome to AI for Interior Designers podcast. P.S. This intro was written by and voiced by AI to sound like your host, Jenna Gaidusek. This is the AI for Interior Designers podcast, and I'm Jenna Gaidusek. I'm your host for this. So I never wanted to start a podcast. This was never a goal of mine, but I feel like not only is it like what the cool kids are doing right now, but I've been asked so many times, do you have one? Are you just sharing this stuff on Instagram, on YouTube? So I figured I'd just get it all together, put it all in a podcast, split it up, use it out to other places like we are all doing with our social media. But let's just start a podcast. Let's just talk about AI. Let's just talk about all of the advancements that are constantly rolling out. Talk to some designers, see how everybody else is using it, and some technology, like some apps, some new programs that are popping up. That's my goal for this, right? I talk about this, I use it every day. I have AIforinteriordesigners.com. Let's just talk about it in a podcast where you can listen to this on the go, wherever you are. All right. So I wanted to jump in and give you a backstory about who I am, where I come from, how we even got here today. And maybe it'll, give you a little information about what I do and why you're even listening to this podcast. Quick side note, I've already recorded this entire podcast, but it didn't record any audio. So I'm doing this by myself. Eventually I'll probably hire somebody to help. But the best way to learn is just by screwing it all up, right? So I've learned everything that I know today is I don't know if this is supposed to be clean or explicit, so I'm just going to say I screwed it off. And that's how you learn. So here we go. Take two. It looks like my audio is on and I'm going to get started. All right. So a little backstory. I have a degree. I have an associate's technically and a bachelor's in interior design. I went to school in New York. And after I graduated college in 2010, I decided there was actually not a lot of jobs available that I was interested in for entry level at the time. So I decided to get my real estate license. And I did that for a little bit. This was 2010. So I was also very young and, I was doing more staging than anything and just not really into it as I should be at the time. So from there, my boyfriend, now husband, and I decided we need a change. We need to get out of New York. We need a fresh start. So we both took career opportunities in Louisville, Kentucky, and I started working for a high-end furniture company and started as a salesperson. From there, I quickly grew up. Well, I did grow up, but I grew to manage multi-million-dollar locations by the time I was about 23 for this furniture store. And it took me in a lot of places. I got to kind of climb my way up the corporate ladder. I got to work in Louisville. I got to work in Indianapolis. I got to work in Danbury, Connecticut, and in Manhattan. So it took us all around, and we got to explore a ton of different cultures and cities and people, and I just love that. Now, I am inherently a introvert, though being a Leo, I am also an extrovert when you get to know me. But I'm typically very shy. I don't go out of my way to meet people in person. And so that's why online design and online just communication has always been my thing. That's where I thrive. But if you ever meet me in person and I'm a little shy, that's just what you get. So it's not you, it's definitely me. But I decided that when we were in Manhattan and I was doing this crazy commute into meatpacking that I just didn't want to do this whole furniture industry sales meeting goals thing anymore and managing these stores and trade program at the time. So I was no longer designing. I was managing adults and they were acting like children. And that was not my thing. So I decided to start pursuing these online virtual design companies that were popping up, and starting in the city. And so I was winning enough of these projects back then that I was able to actually leave my job with the support of my husband, and pursue this entirely online. So I left that corporate job, never looked back, but learned a lot while I was there. And I was able to start, working and earning virtually. So something that I was never able to do as I was, managing and doing all that was design, like, renders. And I learned SketchUp back in school, and that was like, I loved it, right? Like, and it really just kind of came out, and it was one of my favorite things to do, to visually communicate, but I no longer could do that. So I dusted off my Photoshop skills and I started to create these 2D concept boards, and use those for my clients. They took hours and hours to create. Now I can whip them up in about 20 minutes or less, and they had skewed perspectives and, like, they're a mess. Like, they're a mess, but you have to start somewhere, right? And I had to relearn again after being out of the game for about 5 or 6 years how to do this. So we ended up basically, like, I started doing this. I started building my own business simultaneously while taking on these jobs. I had, JennaGaidusek started with Squarespace, started with a blog, not even knowing what a blog was at the time, or how to use affiliates or anything like that. I think even in my first blog post, I was like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to talk about some fun stuff that I like, and, no affiliates in here at all. And that's what I did. Just built, this online company, started getting my own clients, and it just took off. And I was doing it really successfully in a way that I was able to leave these other companies that I was working for at the time and focus on my own business. So because of that, on social media, designers were reaching out to me saying, hey, how are you doing these design boards? Because it started with Photoshop. I ended up actually getting like a free version of 2020, or Icovia or something, and built the rooms, built the floor plans, took that like rendered image and then put it in Photoshop, and then like placed the images of the products inside and kind of manipulated them that way. So at the time, it was really advanced for what I was doing, because it wasn't spending hours in SketchUp. I wasn't doing any of that, but it was like a 2D plus concept work. So these designers were reaching out to me, and I was like, all right, I'm pretty lonely here in the city. We had our daughter. My husband was working in Manhattan, and I was alone a lot, especially being an introvert. Like, I wasn't going out and like making friends. I was focusing on building a business, taking care of our, that 0 to 1 year old at the time, and it was lonely. So I started a Facebook group called eDesign Tribe in 2018, and just looking for community and to share my knowledge with people. From there, a class about e-design and how to create a successful business was formed. And from there, eDesign U, which was a whole suite of classes and content and learning for wherever stage you are, whatever you're trying to learn in your design business. eDesign U had something that would help you. These classes droned on. They were super long. There was no editing back then. Like, it was just a lot of content that you had to kind of zip through. So I don't do it like that anymore, but you got to start somewhere. So I had, probably close to 1,000 designers that I had just word of mouth, never ran ads or anything to this group, that had taken my classes. And the Facebook group just continued to grow and grow and grow. And I ended up creating this program that would also like basically take all your affiliates from all of your affiliate networks, and you could compile a embeddable list into your website, the clickable list that would have every affiliate link to all the products. You could do like this product feed, and with a render or a concept board or something like that, and you could share it with anybody, so with your clients or anybody else. So I created that program, and then from there came this rendering integration, where I started with one company that was better out there, so I went with something else and launched that right before COVID hit. And when COVID hit, everybody was starting jumping on the virtual design wagon. So people that were like, oh, e-design sucks, for forever, were now like, oh, I need to learn this because I don't know how to collaborate with a client if I can't go to their house. So that's where everything changed, and it just took off. And I loved every minute of it. Like, I love teaching. I love seeing what everybody's creating. Just the community atmosphere was amazing. And that's when I decided that when I was approached by my Doma studio to see if I would be interested in merging with them, I was like, yes, yes. Like, they are great people. They have a great reputation, a great program. And what they didn't have, I had, and vice versa. So we decided to join our communities, join our programs, 2021, 2022-ish. And from there, I just have been able to teach and continue to design myself. I got more time back to actually take on clients, which I kind of had to put on pause for a little bit as I was building the eDesign platform and eDesign U classes and the community, because who's got time to do all of those things? It was pretty much maxed out. All the while, having our second child and going through all that. So, it was just the right time, and with the right people. If you're not familiar with my Doma Studio, highly recommend. Like, it's just the best people, the best support, the best program for your, project management, for your rendering now, and just everything else in between. It's a really great program designed by designers, and they listen. So they're not sponsoring any of this. I'm just saying that because I genuinely love their program and the people that are included. So anyway, I've been able to now recenter myself in doing what I love, and that's technology and design. And so when AI started to make its way onto the scene, it took me a few months to really start digging into ChatGPT, which was, like the first one to really release. And when I did, every single day, like, I do this for a living, and I feel like I am scratching the surface for what's out there. So that's why I'm excited for this podcast and for all of the things that are going to come out of it. And I hope you guys learn something every single week. So I'm going to keep it short. Don't want to rattle on forever, but I hope to see you for episode 2 and for all of the other future AI for interior designers episodes here on this podcast. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Over a year ago now, I never look back. It changed the way that I do everything in my design business. I ask it for everything. Like, I ask, can this sound better? What idea should I write about for blogging? All of these things that are not just the pretty pictures that you see. There's so much more to it. And that's where I started with it, because back then it was like Mid-Journey. You didn't have DALL-E, which is now the text, generative text portion of ChatGPT. It was Mid-Journey and it was ChatGPT. So started with ChatGPT to start idea generation. And back then it was not, I say back then like it's forever ago. It was literally like a year ago. But it did not have access to the internet at the time. So it was like preloaded through, don't quote me on this, but I want to say September 2021. But it was not all full up-to-date information, but it was cool, right? So like, it got you the answers that you needed. So it started to do updates. You get access to ChatGPT Plus, which is connected to the internet real time. And that also includes DALL-E. DALL-E is part of ChatGPT Plus, and the parent company for ChatGPT Plus and DALL-E, and soon Sora, which is a video generative platform. All of this is under the OpenAI umbrella. So OpenAI is basically like, you can integrate if you've got a software or program. They've left it open so that a lot of people can adapt the AI into their existing programs. So that is, and then they have their own, which is ChatGPT, and then DALL-E, which is the image, and then soon Sora, which is text to video. So that's where I started, was with ChatGPT, and then I started to introduce Mid-Journey, which is also generative text, to image. the Midjourney program is technically through Discord. So it's on this, if you're not familiar with Discord, I wasn't either. So I had to figure all this stuff out. But Discord is basically like the new Facebook groups. So it's very tailored to communities. It kind of looks like Slack, if you're familiar with Slack, where it's like no frills. It's just like a chat thread type thing. You can create your own servers, you can integrate it with other programs, and kind of do feeds that way. So Midjourney, when you use it now, and soon it'll be changing a little bit more because you can use it on midjourney.com soon. But right now, what you do is basically create a Discord account, sign up for the Midjourney program, and then you can start using prompts through the Discord server to create images. It creates 4 images per prompt, and you can do, technically up to 10 different prompts at a time. And that's it. Like you get your images, you can enlarge them, you can make minor changes, you can zoom out, you can have it redo all 4 images using the same prompt. It's always random, right? You never really get the same image ever. So it creates incredibly photorealistic images. I also use it to create seamless textures, patterns that I then put into Photoshop and manipulate. But it is probably, at this point in time, the most photorealistic program out there for interior designers to use for generative imagery. With that being said, I also use DALL-E, which is part of ChatGPT Plus. So what DALL-E does is something different. Like they both produce things that are images, right? But they both do it in a different way. So DALL-E is like having a chat with somebody. So if you were to use ChatGPT, you basically prompt it, you ask a question, like you're talking to a robot. You can even do through the app, you can do voice. So like you ask the question with your voice, the robot AI through ChatGPT will reply to you with their voice too, but also type it all out. So you have a chat conversation, like you're talking to your robot friend, and it's one feed, it's one, chat thread. You can start a new one if you want to. But it's just back and forth, like, hey, let's do this. Okay, now let's do this. Okay, let's revise that. Okay, can you tell me a little bit more about option number 4 that you just gave me? The same thing applies to the way that you can do generative images through ChatGPT and DALL-E. So you can basically say, here's my client profile. Here's some information that I'm looking to get. I'd like to get a flat lay using these colors in this description. Let's do a conceptual flat lay board. Okay, now let's turn that flat lay board into a render. Okay, now I see the artwork that you have on the back wall. Let's separate that artwork and just put it by itself so that I can use it in a room. Yes, there's more to it than that, but you can basically work through the development phase of a whole project with a conversation in DALL-E. Different than Midjourney. Midjourney is prompt it and you're done. So if you were to ask right now, what is the best program for interior designers to get started with AI? I would say sign up for ChatGPT. If you want to just explore the free version, you can. But when you're ready, do that $20 upgrade to Plus, because then you get the full extent of like the live connected to the internet, ChatGPT. You also get DALL-E, so you can start creating those images. But DALL-E also can create the prompts for you for what it used to create the image. So I steal those prompts and I put them in Midjourney. So I actually am using all of these programs on a daily basis. But if you're just looking to start out and get your feet wet with one, ChatGPT Plus is probably the one that I would recommend to you. So let's get into what ChatGPT is and the benefits for interior designers. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot more on this later, and I do have a full course about like getting started with this and like visible trainings, and we stay up to date quarterly with live sessions as well on AIforinteriordesigners.com. But what ChatGPT in its current status for the plus version can do is it can create basically these little GPTs. So they are pre-trained transformers, and you can teach them and build them yourself to do specific tasks for you. Okay, so you could just like start a conversation and open up the app and just start asking away. That's not a problem. But I have 5 core, bots, as I call them, or I really call them buddies. But I have, 5 that I've already started developing. They take a little bit of time to train, so I'm starting with, just 5. The first one being my design assistant, where basically I will take all of my client onboarding information. I will then, I collect it through Typeform or via phone call. I put it all into my design assistant, all raw, and it immediately knows, because I've trained it, that it needs to spit back a really cohesive profile. Now, if you're using Weigoma, you could actually take that whole profile that it gives you, pop that into Max, the AI assistant that they built, and instead of taking about 15 minutes to start a new project and lay everything out with, like the budget, the views, the files that you need, it will take all of your information, generate it in seconds. So I love that. Anything that'll save time, right? So, so I start with the profile. I build out the profile, make it look nice and pretty. ChatGPT now has memory. So as I'm going through this, it's retaining that information in this thread for that client information that I provide in the beginning. And so I take that information, put it in Max, that's a separate project management tool, but then it knows, because I've trained it, that the next thing after it gives me the detailed profile summary is to start creating imagery that's conceptual. So like a flat lay board, material boards, wood board selections, that embody the idea of what I just told it for this client project, a starting point for us. So from there, I can take this information, these client boards, and I can continue the conversation and say, okay, great, that's the color palette that I want to go with, option A, B, or C, or whatever. We just keep talking. And then I say, okay, now let's create the rendering of this. And let's see what this is going to look like in a kitchen, if we're designing the kitchen, and then it'll create that. I do have to refine it a little bit, because once you go from mood board, flat lay over to rendering, it's cluttered. There's a lot of stuff going on in DALL-E. So I cleaned it up a little bit. Meanwhile, DALL-E is giving me the prompt. So it's saying, okay, here's what I used to create that image. I copy that, I put it in Midjourney, and it creates a totally different version of this. So DALL-E's images come out with like kind of this glow to it, and they've got this weird thing with lighting. There's too much, like all the time. And then there's just a lot of clutter, like it does things really well. It makes art really well. Like if you're watching this on YouTube, I've got an art piece that I created in DALL-E using the hex codes from my wallpaper, so the same color palette. But it doesn't create photorealistic renderings the way that Midjourney version 6 is currently doing it. So I take it, I put it in both, I see which one's best, but I do continue to talk to my GPT design assistant to work through that process. So, it's generative. I'm like, okay, let's start here. And then by the end of the chat thread, which is ongoing always, I can work through the entire design phase. Okay. So that's just one. Another one that I have trained is basically a hashtag guru is what I call it. But it's not just that. It does other things for Instagram. So every day I've been posting a AI interior Insta picture to my Instagram. It's my goal for the year of 2024 is to post every day. I'm creating hundreds of images for my clients, for just ideas for the classes at AI for interior design.com. So I've got all these pretty pictures that I'm like, I have to tell people about these, so I have to show people. So I have been posting one every day. I need hashtags, right? And some people say you don't, but my analytics say otherwise, that they are driving traffic. So I will continue to do them until they no longer are. But I will take the photo that I want to share, put it into this, I upload it to the GPT that I trained. It knows immediately that it needs to give me 30 hashtags that are relevant to this image and to this topic. And then it will give me alt text. I'll talk about that in a second, and a starting caption. So like, I don't ever use them, but if you ever needed one, it's a good place to start. So all of this is copy and paste. I can put it right into my post. I can do it from my phone. I can do it from my computer. I can even have an assistant start to put all this in later for me, and then I could just kind of go back and schedule all my stuff. So alt text is basically describing the image with words. So it started out as, something for visual impaired, and it really is an SEO optimizer, so search engine optimization. That was a mouthful. So basically what it does is, if you are searching on Google or now on ChatGPT, Copilot, which is Microsoft's, Gemini, which is formerly Bard, part of Google, all of these search engines, and just regular Google too, it is pulling that alt text as keywords too. Okay, so it's just helping with extra context that is searchable. So every time you upload a picture to Instagram, to Pinterest, to your website, include alt text, because it's not Google searches and other searches aren't reading what's in an image. They're reading the text behind the image when it pulls the search results. So now it's pulling results from Instagram, Pinterest, and of course the internet. And now has honestly never been a better time to blog, in my opinion, because we just amplify the amount of search engines that exist in this world with AI. We got, like I said, Microsoft making their Copilot. You've got ChatGPT that's sourcing in Pro, where it gets its results from. You want to be showing up in those results when anybody starts searching these things. So blogging and alt text is where it's at for that. So if I'm going to be posting something, you better believe I'm using hashtags, and you better believe that I'm using alt text, because it's just helping to find that post later if somebody searches those specific, topics or keywords or something. So that's why I built this bot, so that I could have those things and I don't have to think about it, because alt text is like the bane of my existence as a designer, and it's not something I ever wanted to do. Neither is like copywriting or finding the words for emails. All these things I can put into ChatGPT after I give it my, like outlandish whatever grammar that I need to do. My sister is now a lawyer, but went to school for English. And I've just been, corrected my entire life on using that side of my brain and actually like writing things. So that's why I always try and do like videos so I could just kind of talk through it, because I write the way that I talk, and some people don't like that. And the way that I misspell things. Now I leave my misspellings in my emails and in my blogs, just to let people know that like the whole thing wasn't created by AI. It might have been started by AI, but like I leave those little nuggets in there for you so that Jenna was here and she messed up on the spelling of this. So it was written by a real person, right? So anyway, if you're a designer, you don't love doing those back end things, but you know that you need them, highly recommend doing these GPTs. Now, I will say I do teach you how to build these GPTs in my ChatGPT class through AI for interior designers, but soon I will also just be coming out with access to them along with individual training. So they are private, but I will have trainings on how to use them, how to communicate with them. I let them vague, so they're not like programmed for my design business in any way, but they help with the same format for all designers. So I've got the design assistant, I've got the hashtag guru, I've got a blogging buddy, I've got a interior designer lead magnet generator where you can basically brainstorm and then write lead magnets. I've got another one that is for budgets, which is basically programmed to have every single detail of every single room to consider for your budget. You tell it what your client's room is, what their budget is, and then it will give you an itemized good, better, best option for every single item in that room that you can, and it also factors in, like overage and delivery and taxes, and kind of leaves some space for that too. So I've been developing these things for a while, and they are always under development. Every time I use them, I'm training them, I'm revising them, I'm making them better. So soon these will all be released. If you're not interested in like building your own or learning how to do this, I got you. They're immediately ready to use, and those will be releasing soon. So if you're looking to get started with AI, there's ChatGPT that I highly recommend. You can start it for free, but then upgrade to the $20 plan. You get the DALL-E, you get the ChatGPT. You also get access to the store, which is all of these programs have basically been integrating AI into their current software. And so they, like Canva's in there. You can technically start a chat conversation in ChatGPT using the Canva GPT that's in there, and say, here's the graphic that I want. It creates that graphic, then it bumps you over to Canva so you can finish developing it. There's quite a few like that. There's video editors, there's other things that also do that too. But have integrated ChatGPT into their current existing program. So get started with ChatGPT if you're an interior designer. That is where it's at right now. There are new programs popping up for AI, especially in the interior design space, right? Every single day. I test them. Like that is, I nerd out about this stuff. I test it. I want to see how it works. So every month we meet for the AI Innovators Club and we discuss things that we've seen. I try things that are free. I try things that are paid, see what's worth it. For me right now, I still use my brain entirely. So the way that I use AI is a lot of SEO building, a lot of just like stuff that that side of my brain doesn't do, and then conceptualizing for client projects. But after I get the conceptual colors down, the images that I present to my clients and say, hey, what do you think about a range hood that's like this, or the arrangement that looks like this, and kind of like get ideas across to my client in a presentation, then I go over to my Doma visualizer and I render it. I render it to scale with the exact products, because here's a kicker for you guys. Currently, due to copyright, you can't take a 2D concept board and put it into a 3D image. There's copyright restrictions where DALL-E and Midjourney are just not going to do it. They're going to do similar pieces, but in no way is this accurate. And that's here, March 2024. That's where we currently sit. I'm grateful for it because I know that I have so many concept boards out there that I'm like, man, I know that people could just reverse image search on Google, try and find the right products, put it all together. But like somebody were to take my work and create a 3D image from it, I wouldn't feel good about that. It's also kind of an ethics thing for me too, where like I never take designers' images and put them into my AI. I build images using my prompts and then use those images to convey what I'm looking for. I know it's trained on millions and millions of images and content, but it's an algorithm that is always changing and you're never going to get the same images. If I take a designer's work verbatim and say, hey, let's review this, I don't personally feel good about that ethically in the way that I would use that for my design business. I feel like it's kind of cheating and it's not something I want to ever be involved in. So this is also what I, teach other designers, like just have ethics and have boundaries. We are on the forefront, on the frontier of this whole artificial intelligence thing. And if we can set the standards from the get-go as an industry, I think that's going to dictate future use cases for a lot of this. We're always going to have people that are going to misuse it. Hopefully not in our industry. There's a lot of people that are trying to slide in and do stuff and not disclose, and you're going to get caught. We're going to call you out. I'm just going to be totally blunt about it. Like, I have no problem saying this is an AI image, this is not your work, and this is very misleading. And I think a lot of designers feel the same way, and they're also going to be calling people out if we see it too. I do plan to do an ethics, just, like what to do, what not to do type thing with a few of my friends here as one of the episodes. That'll be coming. But for right now, there's just like a line of the sand that I have for myself with the way that I use images and use content and always disclose those types of things. So that'll be coming along with, some interviews on other designers. Like, how are other designers using AI? There's something new in that I learn every single day. There's new ways that designers are exploring AI and enhancing their current business right now. And it's so interesting. And I can't wait to have these people on to interview them. Also, AI companies, software companies, they show me what they're working on, whether it's live or not. I'm involved in a few beta programs too, but I also will be having a few of these people on too, so we can review what their program is, what it does, and how maybe it's the best tool for you out there for your unique business model. This podcast, the goal is to just bring awareness as to what is available on the market and the right app, because it changes every single day. Like I do this for a living, and I feel like I am scratching the surface for what's out there. So that's why I'm excited for this podcast and for all of the things that are going to come out of it. And I hope you guys learn something every single week. So I'm going to keep it short. Don't want to rattle on forever, but I hope to see you for episode 2 and for all of the other future AI for interior designers episodes here on this podcast. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the AI for Interior Designers podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and tune in next week for more AI tips for your design business. See you next time.